She went to therapy to heal her past, but the man she trusted most wasn't just a stranger. If you want to know who is he, then continue this story. This is not just a story. It's a psychological trap. End. The silence in her mother's house had changed. It was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, like a constant whisper she couldn't understand. Ira Sharma paused at the staircase, gripping the railing tighter than she meant to. Another sleepless night. Another morning wondering why the air around her felt like a room without windows. It had been almost a year since her father's accident. At 29, Ira had expected so much more from life: clarity, purpose, a little peace. But instead, she found herself stuck in the past, unable to grieve properly. Her mother floated like a ghost in the house, barely recognizing her half the time. And her older brother Karan? He hadn't called in months. He was safe in Arizona, building his tech startup while their family quietly disintegrated. Her therapist had called 3 times last week. Ira hadn't picked up. But this morning, something changed. Maybe it was the photograph she found while sorting through old boxes in the attic. A picture of her as a child, 6 years old, laughing next to her father and someone else. A boy, slightly older than her. The boy wasn't Karan. She stared at the photograph for minutes, heart thudding, trying to summon the memory. But there was nothing. No name, no voice. Just a strange sense of déjà vu and something curled deep in her gut that felt like fear. That afternoon, she called her new therapist, the one her friend Rachel had recommended. He answered on the first ring. "Hello, Ira. This is Dr. Adrian Vaughn. I've been expecting your call." His voice was calm, confident, familiar. Too familiar. The waiting room smelled like lavender and expensive wood polish. Soft jazz hummed from an unseen speaker, but it didn't calm Ira. She sat perched on the edge of a velvet chair, her palms damp, heart chewing against her ribs. The door clicked open. "Ira?" came that voice again, steady, warm, with just a trace of something off. She looked up into light gray eyes. Dr. Adrian Vaughn couldn't be more than mid-30s, dressed in a slate blue shirt. Sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. He had a clean-cut jawline and a gaze that never blinked longer than it should have. A therapist's gaze. Except it lingered on her for just a second too long. "Welcome," he said, guiding her into his office. Books lined the walls, grouped by color. A small bonsai tree sat beside a glowing salt lamp. It was serene, too curated. Iris sat and crossed her legs, arms defensively folded. Adrian didn't open a notebook, didn't reach for a laptop. He just looked at her like he already knew her story. "So," he began, "this isn't your first time in therapy." She blinked. "No. How did you—" "Your tone. The way you walked in like you were preparing for surgery." He smiled faintly. Ira gave a tight laugh. Sharp observation. "I listen for a living. But my job isn't to fix you, Ira. It's to help you fix you." For the next 40 minutes, she talked about the accident, the guilt, the mother slipping further from reality, the brother slipping further away. Adrian didn't interrupt, but when he finally spoke, "You and your father were close." Ira stiffened. Yeah, he was protective, maybe too much. "And yet, you don't believe his accident was an accident." Her gaze snapped to him. "I never said that." Adrian nodded slowly. "Sometimes what's unsaid is louder than what is." She bit her lip. "You're good at this," he smiled again. "I have reasons." Later that night, she dreamed again. The same blurry dream. A child's laughter, a third voice, her father's angry shout. And in the shadows, a gray-eyed boy was watching her. The dream wouldn't leave her. That gray-eyed boy. The way her father's voice rose, trembling with rage. And somewhere in the background, a door slammed. Hard. Iris sat up in bed, breath short, the early morning sunlight just beginning to pour through the blinds. For a moment, reality and the dream blurred. She reached for her phone, 6:47 a.m. Adrian's face flashed in her mind. The way he had looked at her, that quiet confidence, familiarity. But how? She couldn't shake it. After a shower and a barely touched breakfast, Ira climbed into the attic again, the last place anyone cared to look in that house. The dust was thick, boxes piled up like neglected monuments to a forgotten life. She pulled one labeled Old Photos, Dad's Office, towards her and began sifting. Birthday parties, family vacations, a half-torn Christmas card. Then it stopped her. A photo, clearly taken years ago. Her father smiling faintly, her mother beside him, younger, radiant, and two kids in the foreground, Ira, unmistakable at around 5 or 6, and a boy, not Karan. The boy stood close to Ira, maybe a year or two older, messy hair, soft smile. But what gripped her wasn't any of that. It was his eyes, gray, precisely the kind of gray that made a person hard to forget. Her stomach turned. She flipped the photograph. On the back, faint handwriting in her father's sharp scrawl. Summer 98, Ira and A. Adrian? She suddenly felt dizzy. There was no way, unless there was. Her mind raced. Her dad had always been protective, but secretive too. There were vague stories of business partners and whole other lives she was too young to understand. Conversations cut short when she entered the room. Her mom, offering vague truths whenever Ira asked about her early childhood. And now, a face that shouldn't be there showed up in her therapy sessions, wearing a new name and knowing too much. How long had he known? Was it a coincidence? A mistake? Or had she walked right into the hands of someone who already knew exactly how to ruin her? The photo stayed on the table for hours. Ira sat staring at it long after the daylight faded, her mind refusing to quiet down. Adrian, why would a therapist, some supposedly random referral, show up in her life with that face, that name, that much access to her emotions? Unless it hadn't been random at all. By midnight, she was in her father's study, once his sacred, locked space. No one had entered since the funeral. The room smelled of old leather and cologne, phantom traces of the man who raised her. She opened drawers, pulled books off shelves, ran her hands along the back paneling. Nothing. Then she noticed a warped floorboard under the desk, dislodged. Prying it up revealed a small steel box covered in dust, lighter than it looked. Inside, some worthless bonds, an antique pen, and a leather-bound journal. Her father's handwriting. She flipped through it feverishly, every line a half-formed thought or memory. Her father had been paranoid with this journal, leaving it vague, coded, but the same 3 things kept reappearing. 1. A name, R. Mera. 2. Dates aligning with her early childhood, some marked with double stars. 3. A recurring phrase, like a warning to himself. Keep them apart. Protect Ira at all costs. She turned to one page nearly torn out of the binding, scribbled at the bottom. I should have told her he's my son too. Her breath caught in her throat. Cold rolled through her chest like a wave. Her father had another child. Her therapist, Dr. Adrian Vaughn, was Adrian Mera, her half-brother. The realization made her head spin, with rage, betrayal, confusion. How long had he known? Why now? Why hide? And worst of all, why come back into her life, only to pretend to be someone else? Unless he didn't come to heal, he came to destroy. Ira clutched the journal to her chest and whispered aloud into the stillness. What do you want from me, Adrian? A knock at the front door broke the silence. It was morning, and her next therapy session was in 1 hour. Ira didn't say a word during the ride to Dr. Adrian Vaughn's office. She didn't need to rehearse what she'd say. She wasn't here to get better anymore. She was here to confront a lie that had been breathing next to her for weeks. Or maybe a lie that had been waiting for years. She entered the office 5 minutes early. Adrian looked up from his chair, his usual calm painted across his features. But this time, she didn't feel comforted by it. She felt watched. Good morning, he said. You look tired. I didn't sleep much. Her voice was flat. A beat passed before she added, I found an old photograph. His composure didn't waver, but a slight pause in his blink gave him away. Family memories can hit hard, he said, as if testing the waters. She leaned back in her chair, eyes locked on him. It was me and a boy. Summer of 1998. My father wrote just one letter on the back. Brief silence. Adrian didn't even blink this time. That could be anyone, he said softly. Was it? She shot back. Was it you? Now his eyes held hers, and for a moment they were no longer therapist and patient. They were blood and truth, sitting across the fire. He finally exhaled. You're not ready to know who I am. I already do. A slow, careful smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Then why are you here? To hear it from you, she whispered. Half-brother. That landed hard. His expression faltered. He stood up, walked to the window, then spoke with quiet violence. I waited years, watching your father parade as the perfect man, the perfect family. But he left my mother nothing, not even a name, no photo, no apology, just abandonment. So you lied your way into my life? Pretended to counsel me while you, her voice cracked. Why? Was this all revenge? He turned. Retribution, not revenge. You wanted to break us. I wanted balance. She stood. You manipulated me, my mother's mental health, my grief. Adrian's tone darkened. If only your family hadn't erased mine first. She moved toward the door, but stopped. This ends now. You're not my therapist anymore. He looked at her for a moment, eyes flashing something that felt like sorrow. Your calculation. You're right. I'm something more. For the first time in weeks, Ira didn't attend therapy. No soothing jazz, no lavender air, no carefully constructed lies. Just silence. And now she knew what silence meant. War. Adrian hadn't called or texted after their confrontation, but she didn't trust that silence. It was too quiet, too calculated. She told herself it was over. She had confronted him. She had walked away. But it wasn't over. Because Adrian hadn't come to heal her. He'd come to infiltrate. 3 days later, she found her mother crying on the kitchen floor. Ira, her voice trembled. He said things about your father. Things I never told you. Ira's stomach turned cold. Who said things? Dr. Vaughn, her mom whispered, wringing her hands. He called me. Said he was checking on you. Then he asked about a boy from before your father and I were married. He knew his name, Ira. How did he know his name? It was worse than she feared. Adrian was no longer hiding behind his polished therapy persona. He was planting seeds, disturbing old memories like landmines in her mother's fragile mind. Not just sabotage. Strategy. He was attacking the foundation of the only family she had left. That night, Ira found herself back in her father's study, flipping through the hidden journal again. Buried deep in one of the last entries was a single line, written hastily in red ink. If he ever returns, stop him before he becomes a monster. It wasn't fear. It was guilt. Her father had known what Adrian could become, and he had chosen to bury the truth. Too late. The truth was already free. 3 voicemails waited for her next morning, all from different numbers, all with the same calm, emotionally flat voice. Ira, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We share blood. That's a bond greater than lies. I never meant to hurt you, but some pain is part of healing, isn't it? I thought you'd understand that. After all, you were my patient. You trusted me. She deleted them all, but not before saving them to a hidden folder first. She was going to need proof. Because Adrian Mara, her half-brother, her therapist, her stalker, wasn't going to walk away quietly. The line between reality and manipulation was starting to blur, and Ira knew it. Emails from customers went missing. 2 of her design clients canceled, claiming she'd forgotten critical meetings she swore she never scheduled. At first, she thought it was burnout, but then she saw the email threads, the forged messages with her signature, her tone, her name. Adrian wasn't just targeting her emotional space anymore. He was in her life, digitally, socially, financially. She needed help, and not from a therapist this time. The private investigator came recommended by Rachel. His name was Victor Lang, a wiry man in his late 40s with a calm demeanor and eyes like flint. "I'm not cheap," Victor said, "and I don't deal in hunches. You need to give me something concrete." Ira slid a USB across the table. "His real name is Adrian Mera. He's my half-brother. He used a fake identity to become my therapist. He's now psychologically tormenting me, and I have voicemails, forged emails, and proof he contacted my mother behind my back." Victor looked almost impressed. "Now, that's concrete." That night, as Ira watched old home videos, ones she hadn't touched in years, something shifted. In one silent clip, just 5 seconds long, 6-year-old Ira played in the backyard. In the background, a boy stood at the tip of the frame, just watching, not moving. Gray eyes. Adrian. He had been there all along. Not a coincidence, not a stranger. A kid left behind, watching from the shadows. No wonder the rage had festered. Within the week, Victor confirmed most of what she already knew. Adrian had no medical license under his fake name. He'd fabricated documents, set up a rented office under a shell LLC, and had never billed a single insurance company. He wasn't just posing as a therapist. He was never a therapist at all. "You're not dealing with a damaged man," Victor told her. "You're dealing with someone rehearsed, intentional. And he's not done, because men like that never wrap up neatly." Ira felt the walls close in. Her mother was lucid, less and less. Her team at work was questioning her behavior. She'd isolated from nearly everyone. She knew what Adrian was doing. He didn't want to destroy the family. He wanted to erase the version of it that abandoned him. And that started with replacing Ira, one life at a time. The last time Ira saw her mother fully lucid, it was raining. They sat under the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sky weep on a Friday afternoon. Through the static in her mind, her mother turned to her and said, "He had your father's eyes, but none of his kindness." Ira froze, her heartbeat spiking. She didn't dare speak, afraid the moment would vanish, just like all the others. Her mother's gaze searched through the misty air, like watching a scene rewind behind her eyes. "He came once," she whispered. "On your 7th birthday, your dad almost hit him." Ira turned fully, blinking fast. "Who came?" "Adrian. Though, he was still going by Arav then. He told me everything, that he was my husband's son." The lightning crashed. Ira leaned in. "What did Dad do?" Her mother looked out into the rain. "He paid him off to disappear, said he would bury what didn't belong. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know." Ira scribbled down every word she could remember and sent it to Victor. An hour later, Victor called with a name. Maya Mera, Adrian's mother. Still alive, living under a different name in a suburb outside Chicago. "She's been off the radar for years," Victor said. "No social media, no contact with him either. At least not anymore." Ira didn't hesitate. She booked the flight that night. Maya Mera opened the door barefoot, startled but not surprised. "I wondered if you'd come," she said. Her voice was soft, weathered, like someone used to storms. Inside, a small apartment smelled faintly of jasmine tea and old grief. Maya sat slowly, motioning to the couch. "I tried to protect him, but my silence made him bitter. And your father's silence made him cold." Ira leaned forward. "Why now? Why does he want to hurt me? Us?" Maya looked heartbroken. "Because you represent the life he was denied, the second chance. Your father chose you, not him. That kind of rejection, it becomes a fire that never stops burning." Ira swallowed. "And what does he want now?" Maya hesitated, then said just one word, "reversal." Before Ira could ask what it meant, Maya handed her something, a flash drive. It held recordings, letters, dates, and a single video file. One Adrian had made after changing his name. "Everything he's done," Maya said. "He's documented. As proof, like a legacy." Ira stared at the drive. She didn't just have his motive now, she had his blueprint, and maybe a way to finally end this. The flash drive felt radioactive in her hand. Ira plugged it into her laptop back at the hotel, heart pounding like a drumbeat in her ears. The folders were organized by years. Phase 1, Phase 2, Final Phase. She opened the earliest folder, Phase 1. Therapy is just a mirror. Adrian's voice echoed through the speakers, calm and precise. But when the mirror shows them what's already broken, they panic. That's when the real work begins. Dozens of audio files followed, sessions she thought were private, notes about her insecurities, her triggers, even her uncle's name, someone she'd only mentioned in passing. He remembered everything, used it to design her unraveling. It wasn't guesswork, it was engineering. This had never been about justice, it was about control. And Phase 3, Final Phase, there was a video, date stamped 2 weeks ago. Adrian sat at his desk, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled. That same unsettling calm. The time has come to complete the cycle. She'll doubt herself completely. They'll pull her from her job. Her mother will end up in care. And he smiled, eyes burning cold. I will inherit what I was denied, the Sharma legacy, their contacts, influence, their name. After all, what's in a name? Ira nearly dropped her laptop. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted her life. Victor had worked quickly in her absence. He compiled a digital dossier with Adrian's original name, fake credentials, therapy license forgery, and now his own words, detailing everything. They contacted the licensing board, the police, Ira's legal team, the board of directors at her firm, but Adrian was faster. By the time Ira returned home, her company had received an anonymous tip claiming she was mentally unfit for leadership, that she had faked her emotional breakdowns to frame a therapist, that she posed a threat. Adrian had anticipated her every move. There was one wild card left, the press. Either she'd take this public and risk everything, or disappear in the chaos he created. She didn't hesitate. Ira uploaded the video. The entire Phase 3 folder. Names censored, but enough for the world to see the truth behind Dr. Adrian Vaughn. And then she waited. The call came at 6:37 a.m. The city didn't stop when Adrian was arrested. No sirens, no headlines blaring his fall. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that settles after a storm, but still smells like smoke. Ira stood in the corner of her mother's care facility, watching as nurses gently guided the older woman through the courtyard. Her mother smiled, laughed even, but not at Ira. She didn't recognize her today. Some days were better than others. Some days, they felt like mother and daughter again. But others, Ira was a stranger, just like Adrian had been. The name burned a little less now. He was locked away, charged with identity fraud, unlawful practice, and defamation. There was even talk of extradition. He'd lived under multiple aliases in more than one state. He'd been hunting for a long time. The media had exploded when the video dropped. Overnight, Dr. Adrian Vaughn went from respected therapist to national cautionary tale. Ira became the brave whistleblower. Though she didn't feel brave, she felt empty. Her company reinstated her weeks later, quietly. No apology, just an email. But she didn't return to work. She started painting again. Red, dark blue, sharp lines, no curves, just raw memory hitting canvas. Victor had become something like a friend. He met her every Sunday for coffee, updating her on the latest legal moves. He'll appeal, Victor said one morning. Of course he will. But the system's slower than he is. He's contained now. You won. Ira smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Did I? The cost had been too high. Her mother, her peace, the version of her father she thought she knew. But in her solitude, something new had begun. Not healing, growth. The kind that happens after a wildfire. The soil richer, a roots deeper, maybe even unshakable. One evening, back at the house, she found a small package at her door. No return address. Inside, a blank notebook. Leather-bound, new, and a note written in familiar, pristine cursive. Tell your own story now. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. No signature, no threat, no trace. She burned the note in the fireplace, then picked up a pen and began to write. Not as a victim, not as a patient, but as Ira Sharma, daughter, survivor, and the only one left standing.